Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'll build the US Air Force 5th generation stealth tactical fighter, the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor from Italeri in 1:72 scale. I built a model of a YF-22 a long time ago, so I'm pretty excited to build this kit and I hope it will be a lot of fun. In addition, such as a pilot figure, this build will be completely out of the box, no resin or photo etch parts included. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for not missing any new notifications. Okay, let's get started. First comes the cockpit. I clean all parts with a sharp scalpel and sand it with a P600 sandpaper. The ejection seat is quite nicely molded. Its assembly consists out of 4 small parts. For assembly, I use tweezers and Mr. Cement S. For attachment of the figure, I use a plastic stick. It will help me not to touch the figure while painting. I don't have any clamps, so I use toothpicks and bamboo sticks with masking tape. These homemade tools will help me to paint all parts without touching them. Next, I paint the cockpit with a dark gray color. Now I paint all cockpit details with a paintbrush. For weathering, I apply a light gray and metallic dry brush. After dry brushing, I seal all parts with a layer of clear varnish. For highlighting shadows and panels, I use a black oil wash. Black paint and parts are washed with a light gray oil wash. Now I remove all excessive wash with a cotton swab. Next, I assemble the cockpit together. Honestly, it looks pretty basic, but I have seen worse. Now I can glue the cockpit to the fuselage. The next step is the thrust vector jet nozzles assembly. There are small gaps between the nozzle parts. I will use Mr. Putty to fill all imperfections. The jet nozzles are painted with burnt iron and highlighted with a white color. Now I paint all white parts such as missile bays, landing gear shafts, gear and bay hatches. After the painting is complete, I apply a black-brown oil wash to all parts. Now I remove the oil wash with an emerald thinner. At last, I can begin to assemble the fuselage. First comes the jet nozzles. Then the landing gear shafts. The side fuselage missile base, and the front part of the fuselage. Now I glue the whole fuselage together. Fit was quite good, but putty will be needed. I wasn't so lucky with the upper part, there was a big gap in the fit. And in the air intakes as well. Now I glue the aileron controls and small antennas. This model isn't that bad in the fit. The only issue was the big gap on the upper part and inaccuracies around the air intakes. Everything else fit good, and fill in the gaps with the diluted Mr. White putty. Now I'm sanding down the putty underwater with the P600 and P1000 sandpaper. After sanding the putty, I mask the gear shaft and missile bays with masking tape. Now I apply a layer of Mr. Sulfur 1000. The weather is wonderful, so why not to use the fresh air? After applying, I let the surface dry for a couple of hours. Next, I highlight all panel lines with a pre-shading. For painting of this model, I use my favorite Fengda BD180 airbrush with a 0.25mm nozzle. The Raptor's camouflage is painted with Mr. Color 307 and 308 colors. The aircraft's camouflage is similar to the F-15C's, but it is complicated by many panels in other shades of grey. Therefore, I had to mask all panels with Italeri masking tape one by one. First, I paint the panels with a light gold grey color. The paint is mixed in a ratio in 1:1 to leveling thinner. I had to be careful that the paint does not blow under the masking tape. It may happen that the color may etch to camouflage. The radar cone is painted with a mix of Decals grey and gunship grey colors. Once again, I added a second layer of masking. This procedure is very time expensive and costs a lot of patience. Now I paint the engine colors with chrome silver paint. I added another layer of masking tape over the thrust vectoring nozzles. The nozzles are painted with a mix of grey and steel colors. The camouflage is finished, so I seal it with a layer of Mr. Color super clear varnish. The next step are decals. The decals from the box are okay. There are only two options available. I choose the second manufactured Raptor, call sign ED002, from the Edwards Air Force Base. To remove the water under the decals, I use a cotton swab. After the decals are finished, I seal them with a layer of clear varnish. Now I apply a panoline wash. For this model, I don't choose a black but a lighter tone. Dark gray will do the work. Now I wipe out the excessive wash with a paper towel. The next step is weathering. For weathering, I use burnt sienna, burnt umber, white and black oil paints. Somebody prefers to apply an airbrush post shading. I will do that in another video. But this time I will use a white oil paint to highlight faded panels on the aircraft. First, I apply small dots over the faded areas. Now I take a soft flat paintbrush and blend the oil paint with the surface. I apply the faded weathering over the whole aircraft. Some areas will be more faded, some less. At the end of the weathering, I will use the black paint for gun smoke, engine starting, burnt sienna and amber for hydraulic oil leaks and dirt. The whole model is sealed with a layer of semi-gloss varnish. Before I start with the assembly, I must paint the Raptor's weapons. The Italeri kit includes 2 AIM-9 Sidewinder M and 6 windlass shortened AIM-120C MRAM missiles. First, I paint the missiles with Mr. Color chrome silver paint. Next, I mask the windlets with masking tape. The first one is finished, 7 more to go. Now I paint the missiles with Mr. Color 307 dark ghost grey color. The MRAM small radome is painted with white semi-gloss color. I had to cover the whole missiles with masking tape. Now I paint the yellow and the brown stripes. After the paint job, I added a dark brown oil wash to all missiles. It doesn't look so bad for an Italeri kit. What do you think? Finally, I can begin with the Raptor's assembly. First, I glue the landing gear. Then, the landing gear shaft covers. Next, I glue the MRAMs on their hardpoints and put them into the fuselage missile bay. The fit was perfect. I was skeptical and didn't expect this kinda good fitting. Next, I glue the side missile bay covers and the AIM-9M Sidewinder missiles. Now I glue the horizontal and vertical stabilizers. At the end of the assembly, I glue the hydraulic piston for the cabin opening, paint the heads-up display and glue the cockpit canopy. Alright, the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor is finished. This build was interesting in its camouflage complicity and was a lot of fun. I hope you liked this video. Please subscribe to my channel, like, or if you want to ask me something about my hobby or this build, leave me a comment. I will answer your questions. Also, if you want to follow my work, you can join me on Facebook or Instagram. There is a link in the description. Thank you for watching and see you next time.